This is the most optimistic video you'll ever see. But good news is only as good as the bad news is bad. There's a video on YouTube with millions of views titled "The Most Terrifying Video You'll Ever See." It's terrifying because of the risks of global warming, storms, droughts, floods, epidemics, famines. I agree with everything in that video, but I'm not terrified. You see, there's a complete and ideal solution. Let's review that terrifying video first. It lays a good foundation for the optimistic message that I'm about to present. Greg Craven's video looks at how to manage the possibility that climate change theory is false. And all of those terrible consequences won't happen. But also looks at the possibility, the risk, that climate change theory is true and that terrible consequences will happen unless we take action, we make some changes to mitigate those risks. So we have two choices. We can either take significant action, this one, or we can take no action. And of course there are many in-between options as well. But this grid presents 4 boxes which basically our future is going to fall into one of these 4 boxes. So what would be the first scenario here, where climate change theory ended up being false, humans aren't a significant cause, but we did go ahead and take significant action? Well, it would cost us a fair bit of money, and it would be money wasted, unfortunately. We'd have unnecessary regulation, taxation, and possibly that would lead to global depression. So the economy would suffer. What about the second scenario, where we didn't take action and climate change theory, all the risks that have been talked about, ended up being false? So we continue on as we are, and we're all happy. There we go. What about the third scenario here, where we did take action and climate change theory ended up being true, that these terrible consequences would have happened, except that we took the action? It would still cost us money, the economy would still potentially suffer, but we dodged the bullet. We end up with a different but livable planet. How about the fourth scenario, where the doomsayers were right, but we didn't take any action? It's a pretty bad scenario. Unfortunately, we've got global catastrophes in pretty much every sphere of life. Environmental, social, political, public health. Sea level rise affecting coastal populations, large loss of plants and animals, droughts, famines, floods and storms, disease epidemics affecting millions or even billions of people, many of whom become refugees, warfare over scarce resources, basically the end of the world as we know it. And of course there are intermediate options in between these 4 scenarios. But here's the thing, we can't know for certain which row our future will be in. We don't know for sure whether human-caused climate change is really real or not, and nobody can really know that. We can have a pretty good idea though. But we can know for sure which column our future will fall into. That's because we control, it's our choice what action we take. We either take action or we don't. That's our choice. So it's a bit like buying a lottery ticket, either ticket A or ticket B. And then we wait and see what the laws of physics deal up as a result on our purchase of our lottery ticket. So let's say we bought lottery ticket A. We're determining that our future lies somewhere between global depression and a different but livable world. If we pick ticket B and it turns out to be the right choice, then we're all happy. It's sweet. If it turns out to be a mistake, we end up with total unmitigated disaster. Basically, the end of the world as we know it. That's the risk of picking ticket B. So the only sensible choice is to pick column A, buy a lottery ticket A, to act now to prevent the worst of climate change, in order to prevent the possibility of this 4th scenario. As the saying goes, better to be safe than sorry. That's risk management 101. Now for the optimistic part. What if there's a solution outside of ourselves and outside of our worn-out planet? So this may all be true, but something else comes along and rescues us from all 4 of these possible scenarios. Not only does this solve climate change, but also poverty, resource scarcity, conflict, disease, even death and all evil. I'm going to put it to you that that solution is God. but not the God that you often hear about, or even the idea of God that you've probably got in your head right now. You see, just as there's a huge disinformation campaign about climate change, there's also a huge disinformation campaign about God, even by those who claim to worship God. The God I know is a loving, personal God who'd rather die to give us life than force us into anything. He is not the kind of vindictive medieval tyrant eager to burn people forever in hell. By the way, the idea of eternal torment in hell is simply not true. It's part of that disinformation campaign. This isn't blind optimism. We're about to see that putting your faith in God's solution of perfection restored is the most sound risk management. So just like before, we allow that this solution might be true or false, and our choice is whether to believe or not to believe. So what would be the consequences for this first scenario where Christianity ended up being a delusion but you fell for it? Well, you'd be living an unreal life, but you'd be happier, and society would be more peaceful and more loving, and the environment would also fare better. And this is because Christian principles of putting others before your own selfish greed, known as the Golden Rule, these allow society and the environment to benefit. So catastrophes would still be possible, but they'd be delayed because of the Golden Rule. So what about the next option, where Christianity was a delusion, but you didn't fall for it? Well, we'd basically continue as we are, but that would mean catastrophe is just around the corner. The next options are where this gets really powerful. First, where the claims of Christianity are true and you believed it. This is just happiness unlimited. I'll draw a smiley face and the symbol infinity. You've got eternal life, eternal happiness, love, all the problems that we know in this world, your personal problems, all solved forever, for good. It's the best solution you could ever imagine. But unfortunately, if you don't believe it and it ends up true, what a wasted opportunity. You're still going to suffer global catastrophe and you miss out on eternal happiness. Column A is both amazingly good and easy. The good news is that all we need to do is to believe it. Even if you're struggling to believe that it's true, we still solve some of the biggest global problems because of the Golden Rule. And if it is true, we solve all of life's issues and live happily ever after. It's a blissful future that's better than any fairy tale that you've ever heard of or could imagine. If you decide not to believe in this perfect and ultimate solution, it doesn't bring you any advantages at all, except perhaps bragging rights over one belief that you happen to get correct, if we end up here. But wouldn't it be an absolute tragedy to miss out on eternal perfect happiness? And I might add, at the same time, delaying God's perfect solution. Because God's not willing that any should perish. He's very patient and doesn't want anyone to miss out, so he's bending over backwards to give everyone the maximum opportunity. If everyone on the planet chose column A right now, God would bring about this perfect solution straight away. The Bible says just that. So don't just believe it, share it. This risk matrix is actually borrowed from Pascal's wager. Pascal said that only a fool would choose to live the godless life, given the choices and the outcomes available. Risk Management 101. The Christian life is better in quality and quantity, even ignoring the possibility of eternity. Google Blue Zones and the Adventist Health Study, or do your own research into factors associated with happiness and well-being, and try the Christian life for yourself. I have. It works. Too good to be true? Why not put some other fairy tale solution to all life's ills into a similar matrix like this? Well, we could say the same about climate change. Why not put some other problem, such as a hostile alien invasion, and put all our resources into solving for that? Well, there are some pretty good reasons to be concerned about climate change more than any other issue. Here's just one. Among climate experts, 97% agree that human-caused climate change is a real and significant issue. Okay, so back to the second risk management matrix. Why not put some other fairy tale solution like fairies in the bottom of the garden? Well, this solution is actually credible, and it's been believed by globally renowned thinkers throughout history and today. There are good reasons why it is credible. The Bible has accurately predicted the future many times over and never failed. Daniel 2 is a classic example. The Bible's content is relevant across cultures, times and lands. For example, its health principles are way ahead of its time. I mentioned the Adventist Health Study before. That has a wealth of published scientific studies documenting the real-life outcomes for a group of people who've been living according to its health principles. Their risks of heart disease and cancer are significantly lower, and they live 4 to 7 years longer on average. Biblical Christianity is practical, meaningful and relevant to my life today, and it satisfies the deepest longings of my heart, revealing a God who loves me. If you're still struggling with the idea of this second matrix, let's look back at both of them and see what we can learn by comparing them. There's a few things they have in common. The safest and best choice is straightforward in both cases. Column A, the first column. But in general, our society has missed the boat on choosing what's best. Are we all on the same page in recognising and responding to climate change risk? Clearly no. Are we all looking forward to and promoting God's solution of a renewed planet? Only a small minority are. Why? In both cases, there are huge disinformation campaigns. There are vested interests that don't want you to know the truth about climate change. And there are also vested interests that don't want you to know the truth about a loving God who is doing everything possible to save us, but without forcing us. You see, love necessitates freedom, and freedom means you and I have choice, and choice involves risk. Everyone in the universe has choice, but that freedom has not always been used wisely or lovingly. There's a great controversy behind the scenes over the character of God. Is he truly a God of love? Does he even exist? There is an abundance of disinformation about God, just as there is about climate change, from propagandists from the fossil fuel industry. If you're not sure that God exists or has the solution, look again at the risk matrix and see which is the best option for you. Believe it and share it. We have a God of love who has guaranteed the eternal security and happiness of our whole planet, as well as for you and for me personally. But he doesn't force himself on anyone. It's your choice.